I didn't bring no lunch.
Man, I had a good one to start with. I'll go ahead anyway. Lonnie was down in Kentucky one time, late at night, starry night. We were on the deck back there. Big old moon. It kept getting bigger. I don't know how. But he's like, man, he said, when I die, I want 6 21-year-old blonde virgins carried me to the cemetery. And so I'm like, cool, man. I'll make that happen. So now, I mean, I don't know how it is in Ohio, but in Kentucky, on Saturday night, on Derby Day, that's a tall order. So we have a few other guys, you know, who are going to help out. I'm sure he'll be pleased. Anyway, I wrote down some stories because my memory's terrible. And I just kind of like to know, you know, what I want everybody to tell a story. Everybody has a Lonnie story. All you got to do is think of one thing. My first Lonnie story started when we were like, we lived in Commercial Point, and we lived in the middle of town there. And, you know, my mom had to wash us in the old metal tubs, you know, looking out on the yard right there in the kitchen. And so Lonnie, because everybody's favorite, got washed first, and got down and darted out the side door there in the kitchen, naked as a jaybird. And she's like, "Where are you going, Lonnie?" You know, and he just laughed. You know, he just had that laugh going on. And so she was finishing up on Tony and I, and the next thing we see, here comes Lonnie running across the yard, squealing because Don Thrasher's Roosters were chasing him. Tony had the butcher knife, you know, it's like, I'm gonna kill them all, you know. Anyway, it was funny. We had a lot of fun in Commercial Point. We lived there for 6 years. But my older brother Tony got a Go-Kart for Christmas. And this was a big deal now. This is like 1959. So it was like, wow, he got a Go-Kart, cool. So we're like looking at it and everything and just talking, me and Dad and Tony and Lonnie. And Lonnie jumps on the thing, hits the gas pedal, takes off down the alley, and that's what it was. And he's turned around laughing at us because we're chasing after him. And he takes it right up a tree.
Oh, no.
Broke the axle, Christmas was over. The time that my dad was painting the house, Lonnie painted his dog. Same color. We had a collie named Petey King, and that was Lonnie's dog, and he became red. And he didn't get a whipping for that. If anybody, if you want to talk, just raise your hand. Don't, you know, I mean, I have 5 or 6 things here, but Lonnie and the Holy Roller Church. We were kids. We'd go back to Grandma McCullis and Gallipolis, and we went on Mother's Day because whoever had the most kids there won the rose. And Grandma McCullough had 12 kids. So we got to go to her church for a change. Well, we went in there. It was all normal, sat down. They started playing music, and everybody started getting up. They started waving their hands. And you hear him say, "Praise the Lord, praise the Lord." I'm like, Lonnie, don't. I could see he was working on it. And the whole service was like that. You know, there were people just up, you know, walking around and praising the Lord up and down the aisles. And he said, "Mark," he said, "if one kid says anything," he said, "I'm into it. They're going to hear me." So he was cool throughout the whole thing. We're walking out of the church, and Lonnie looks at me with that grin, and he said, "Not a bad show for a dime." Now, about that same time, this could have been the same day. Because when we went to Grandma's, her house wasn't as big as this room here. And so all the kids would go down to all the cousins. He had a farm down there. We'd go back on the hill. You know, just everything you would do on a farm. They had a pony that that we got to ride and everything. And it got to be the end of the day, and my parents said, "Where's Lonnie?" I don't know. and if we could have got away with it, we'd say, "Well, I don't care. We can leave him and get him next year." Good with me. So we had to scout out, try to find Lonzo. Well, we look everywhere, in the barn, everywhere you can possibly look, back on the hill. And we walked, go to the back of the barn, behind the barn, and here's Lonnie back there, probably 4 years old, sitting in a field of strawberries, just picking every strawberry off the vine and chunking it down. And he didn't get a whipping for it. I want to tell one more, and then I'll open up the floor. Funny. As we got older, we came up with another little sister. We came up with a sister. And, of course, Lonnie, up to now, he's been the kingpin. Everything was all about Lonzo. Well, I was downstairs. My mom comes running into the house. She was at work. She comes running into the house. "Where's the kids?" I said, "They're upstairs." And so she goes upstairs, and Lonnie has Jonda on a rope coming up the side of the house. And John's about 4. And of course, after he did get a whipping that day. And after he got done, he came back upstairs, and he said, "Mark, I had the other end tied to the bed." A neighbor saw that and called my mom. She was halfway up from the ground. There was another time when I just told Shell this one last night. I had forgotten it up to now. I was downstairs as usual. He was upstairs, and he kept taking cups of water up there. I'm like, "What's up with that?" He's like, "Well, I'm thirsty. I'm drinking a lot, And after about the 3rd or 4th one, he's like, "What are you taking the water up there for?" He said, "I had an experiment going on for class." And so eventually I went upstairs, and what his experiment was, he was underneath the bed and with a lighter. And the lining on the bottom of the bed is just that sheer kind of stuff. But he got that sheer kind of stuff on fire. And he was trying to put it out with and he had a fan on. He thought he could blow it out. No, he didn't hear about that. No, Mom and Dad didn't hear about that. That would look bad on me. I would have got a whipping. Okay. I want to hear another story. You don't have to come up here. Kathy?
Mark, you cannot leave without telling about the freezer.
You know what? That's on the other side of this. I have that because we had a party. We're in Kentucky, that's what we did. There you go, you got it. Okay, we're having a party. Everybody's there. And on the deck, back on the deck back there, he has words with somebody. And he's upset with them. He's really upset with them. Probably the first argument they've ever had. I don't know. They've only been together 22 years. He comes back in the house, walks straight to the refrigerator, opens up the freezer, sticks his head in it, and smashes it on the side of his head. breaks that bar. He breaks that bar that's across the top of your door, and it's just food goes everywhere. So, was it you who was arguing with? I don't know. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. That's what
I know.
I like you trying to fix it better.
So anyway, so we have a sign on there now that says, they said, you got to get it. No, Lonnie said, I got to buy Mark a new refrigerator. That was the first thing he said. Then the second thing he said was, we got to buy you a new bar. Well, we never bought a new bar. We straightened it out as good as we can. It looks a lot like this all the way down. And it says, Lonnie broke this with his head.